Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm worried. Right and left, they're going to shoot questions. I'm stuck in between. But it's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to talk about women. It's wonderful to celebrate the woman in every one of us. Thank you.
I guess he needn't be worried because it's going to be a conversation. I think we are in a space where there are discussions, debates, and conversations about gender like it hasn't happened in the longest of times. Am I right? കാലങ്ങളായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ കാപ്പറ്റിൻ്റെ അടിയിൽ ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിക്കേണ്ട എന്ന് വിചാരിച്ച ഒരുപാട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഐ തിങ്ക് ഹാസ് കം ടു ദ ഫോർ ഫ്രണ്ട് in 2018. Do you agree or not? And I think that's the way forward. Conversations are the way forward. There's no point, keeping quiet anymore. I think I know that for sure. Uh, so we're still confused as to who's asking whom questions, right?
I'm not sure who's asking either.
I was asked to have a conversation with you all.
Yeah, let's.
I'm just out of one, so why don't you guys take the lead?
Okay, I'll just set up the mood. When I write, when I talk, a lot of them ask me, why do you talk of women a lot? And I say, I am surrounded by women all my life. It could be my mother, my sister, my daughters, my friends. And I'm very proud of it. I've realized in my life, being with my mother, is if you need to understand somebody's pain, if you need to understand somebody's hunger, it is the woman in you who understands it. And I'm very proud of it. It's very important today that as a man, and all men should realize, with or without our knowledge, we have been predators. We have been predators. We have got away with it. And today, when women are asserting this space, including the Me Too campaign, we should be ashamed that they started it. And let's be a little sensitive to it. It is important that we get liberated with our fixed outlook. We have an inclusive society. We celebrate the woman in us and the women around us. And then I think now we can have a conversation.
I'm just wondering, do you think it's very conveniently put across to the women that, you're nurturers and you have to understand that part? Because I've seen men who are who are sensitive and who are very, very, who take care and,
My husband takes care of me more than I do.
Here's off your mic.
yeah.
My husband actually takes care of me more, and I think he's more loving and caring and tender than I am. So.
Yeah, I would say the same about Ashik if you ask me.
Yeah, it's just two of you, but it is not
No,
what
I'm
it is
saying,
in the society.
Yeah, definitely. No, but I'm saying it shouldn't conveniently be put across to one gender. I think all genders, all people generally have that deep inside us. And when we keep saying that, women are the only ones who, I think the onus is shifted to just one gender. I feel it shouldn't be like that. I think
It
we
is
should
not
take.
like that.
Actually,
we
Prakash,
should
I
put
mean, when
men
you said
on
the
that
majority,
pedestal as well.
so when you said the majority of us are not like that, or the men are not like that, it's primarily because we have celebrated malehood in a certain way that a lot of other men who may not be as empowered as like Jasmine or Ashe, to be tender and caring and be very, very emotional and comfortable with that idea. And we've really celebrated a very weird idea of both manhood and womanhood and the in-between spaces.
Gender role, it's a gender stereotype. Which
When I
means-
say we, it is not only men, the women too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and no, I'm just saying, I just want to add to it saying that we should celebrate the men who stood by us, who stand by us, who care for us. Like you who have spoken for us. I see Abhilash here. I want to celebrate the men in my life. The men who stood by us when nobody did, who took that first step. I think it's important we underline that.
Since you both are from the film fraternity, what do you have your say? You
Yes.
guys have been banned.
Unofficially.
See, it's why I'm saying this is I was in conversation many years back with Revati, Rohini, and Suhasini
Okay.
on a Lights On program. See, I've always said, as a man in this film fraternity, I always boasted that, I came to Chennai with 120 rupees in my pocket and I had a lot of dreams and I had to fight my way through. But then as the conversation continued, I realized, and Revati or Rohini asked, Prakash, it's very easy for you as a man to say you came with 120 rupees. But if a woman who has a lakh in her hand, or could be more talented than me, will that be easy to come and tell a story that I came with this and fought and came up? Because we as a society, we are not worried where a man sleeps, what he eats. But we are worried about where women are. We look at the film fraternity, we have men making films of women and calling them goddesses, but where do we give a space of a woman's perception on a man, and where do we have filmmakers who do it? Do we let them in? So when I say us, when I say we, it is okay of individuals who have celebrating, individuals who are, relieved. But we need to look at the whole thought process of this society, where we may not be the ones who are the predators, but we need to stand for a moment to empower on the whole. We need to continue to have dialogues. Just getting away and me being safe is not right. It's not enough. It is celebrating. Yes, we need to celebrate at these times when people stand up for women. But I think as unless we get into the conscience, the thought process of society as a whole,
And also the action that,
and the action
that
we
follows.
do it. And we will need to see this and we need to empower, we need to make this possible. We need to make this possible. In this film fraternity, and I had another story. They come so young and they get to act with heroes who are double their age.
Yeah.
And then the whole process of a natural growth is removed.
Yeah.
And once Revati was saying when she was an youngster, when she had just come in, she thought being with men, being with the hero, talking to the people was her safety. That she was secure. But after 3 films, they said, when did you both get married? Did you get married in Tirupati? And she realized staying away from men was more secure to her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I would like to actually throw you people, both of you, to throw some lights on certain incidents which people, the problem is we are not sensitized to see it is predating. We are not sensitized to see that without our knowledge, that we are abusing. We are not empowering. We need to sensitize. So only stories can say it,
Yeah. Actually, I have 2-3 of these anecdotes now that Prakash has brought, and then I have a question for you, Prakash. One is this whole age thing, right? When you talk about predatory, it's not always sexual in nature. Yeah, and so we need to get out of that. So unless there is some heinous incident happens and it stirs our moral values, and we feel oh my God, this cannot happen physically to a person. But what does it? There's an entire transaction of events which leads to that heinous crime, right? So I'll tell you recently a really brilliant script, okay, and this was in Tamil, not in Malayalam. And a very young guy, 20, 25. And it's about opposite a star who's not a big star. He's a good actor, not a big star. And he's about 55. So I asked him, you have such a brilliant script. You say this is an urban, intelligent woman. I'm 35. How are you going to pair a 35-year-old opposite 55? How do you justify that? And he said, oh, he's 55, but he looks 45. I said, okay, I'm 35, I can try looking 25. I don't want to, but I can try. Okay. Then he said, okay, so then about the 10 years, because in our generation, we don't normally get, there are these Millennials and all of that. That's an aberration. So how would you explain a non-aberration? Like, is there a reason why they have a 10-year age gap? He said, no, 10 years and all is fine. That is normal. So, I mean, that is the problem, right? Like, because then I'm basically snatching the opportunity of probably Revati acting that role, or a younger one doing a character which I am supposed to do. And that means that there is lesser work opportunity. And this I'm saying as an actor, trust me, this happens across, say if a light boy is there, they should be, young. If it's a woman, they're too tender. These kind of effect, because if you don't have so many people on the film crew, how are you going to know my problems? How do you know when I have periods? What is the kind of things that I need to be safeguarded with? What do you do if I have a mother? Should I stop working? That's lack of equal opportunity. Every other corporate, I mean, I work in the corporate space, I work in the government space, everywhere you'll have a disclaimer saying it's an equal opportunity space. We never say that. We don't invest in our human resources. We have amazing actors like Prakash Raj, even Amitabh Bachchan at some point. We don't even value them until and unless they're in the so-called limelight. The entire valuation of human resources is so absent, and the process of filmmaking is so rested between a few that, and then I say a few, I'm not talking about superstars again. I'm talking about if you're making a film with a newcomer, male newcomer also, that entire process is just restricted to a few. How are you going to ever make a good film? How are you ever going to make a diverse, equal film? The second thing is I just moved, I live in Delhi these days, and I moved into this North Delhi place called Daryaganj. And there's a very popular political activist and politician. It's a she, and from a very liberating front. And she said, I don't understand the Me Too movement. Because I've never had situations like this. I said, what do you mean? I had just shifted to Daryaganj. So it's like one of those really small streets, totally, only men on the streets kind of a thing. And I was moving from a very upmarket South Delhi place where you have a lot of young, cool people going to pubs, etc. That's the movement. And it's the first day. So I am usual, I was just cleaning, dusting the house, and then I just came out wearing my tracks to have a cup of tea because there was no milk in the house. And suddenly at 4 in the afternoon, I have all the men looking at me. Don't we all experience this? How can we say that the Me Too movement is unreal? Does somebody have to pinch my butt to tell me that it's Me Too? For me, the constant underscoring of my physicality, of my sexuality, as if nothing else exists out of it, is what is Me Too to me, right? And those are the instances which you see in a very glorified form in the cinema industry. And so I have a question for you, Prakash. You're a producer, you're a content maker. I'm going through the whole phase of wanting to become a producer. And I have done a lot of films which are very sexist. I can very confidently say that, but I never knew that I was doing so. It was not like it was a conscious decision. What would be the ways of making women feel safer? Because numbers matter. We know numbers matter. How do we get more women? How do we get more stories, not just about women of different caste, religion out there? Also, congratulations, you're standing for the elections. I'm really looking forward to having people like you out there. And our governments are the ones who ensure safety, dignity, all the preamble of the Constitution. How are you envisioning this for, at least from a gender perspective?
See, coming to the films, I have realized how wonderful it is to have women in cinema. In the last 3 films I directed, I had Preeta, who's a cinematographer. Yeah. But light men call her cameraman woman. For them, cinematographer is a man, so she happens to be a woman, so it is cameraman woman madam. Cameraman madam. But the joy is...
No, actually, even I've had that problem. So my last film in Chef, it was Priya. And I was like, cameraman.
It is not just the way men look at or sensually look at or sexist outlook. I go a little deeper in the sense, having a cinematographer who was a woman, the way she sees being a woman a frame, the way she lights up, the way she sees a man, the way she sees a tree, a plant, is so different. It's so beautiful. If letting women, empowering women is to enrich a perception of lot of other things in our society through those eyes, and we are actually losing out. We are actually poorer because we are not letting them give their perception of life. It is not gender, but that is something beautiful about it. A designer who's a Shipra who works for me, I have not found guys or men who are not able to see colors or a design in the way a woman sees it. The way the color sees it. They see a color and how they, explain a color and how they use it as a language. See, that is what I'm worried about. That is where this society is missing. It's empowering not only to say, no, we are stopping victimizing a woman or a gender. It's not that. It is when do we sensitize ourselves and realize what a richness we are missing, what possibilities we are missing, what different perception, what different diversities we are missing. Now, if we really realize that, and everything will fall at place. And we have governments who even women empowerment has been political. Somebody just by a slip of a tongue says something, they will pounce on it, but the person who pounces and make a news will not talk about empowering reservation bill in the parliament. For example, Rahul Gandhi, not that I am from Congress, said the Prime Minister is behind a woman defense minister. Now, all these days, the Prime Minister is silent, not answering any of his questions, but prowling and waiting for that one half of the sentence and pouncing on it. He should say sorry for the Nari Shakti. I said, yeah, he has slipped his tongue. I understand. We will take him. But at least you have spoken now. Speak now. No, he will not talk about issues. He will not talk about, reservation bill, which they have to bring in empowering women. They will not talk about it. So we, as a society, need to understand it. We, as a society, need to understand whatever our rights are, whatever the inclusive or diverse culture we need to be, how these people are politicizing and making us busy, keeping us busy for arguments. There is no dialogue. So I think we need to look at a larger, more perspective.
Yeah, I think you were saying about this Nari Shakti thing, and he pounces on it, and this skimming on the
and
surface.
He can call some woman laughing in the parliament Shurpanakha. That's okay.
So basically, even in films here, if we have noticed, there is this feminism wave. So it's no longer the F word, okay? The feminism, we have been speaking about it for quite some time, and it's kind of fashionable now. And we have a few movies that scratch it on the surface, but do not look at it from a very comprehensive point. There is one danger of that happening here. And there is another whole section of figures from the film industry who are completely silent about it. So we started this movement along with the Women in Cinema Collective for the last 1.5 years. We've been speaking about so many issues concerning women. And unlike you, a large majority of people in the industry here have been very, very quiet. What would you have to say to them?
I don't want to use 4-letter words anyway.
No, feminism is
See,
the F word. No, not the 4-letter word. Yeah, the new F word is feminism.
Oh, here we have company.
See, the very fact somebody asking a woman to do it, we want evidence. What a joke it is. Like, I wish a touch of a man would be a touch of a Rama on a squirrel. We could find the marks. But these marks are deeper than flesh. You may not intend it, but you cannot deny that she was hurt. You can't say, no, she was not hurt. I mean, how dare you say that? You know, this is this attitude. And people who are silent, they're actually very loud. Silence speaks. Silence expresses. It is not what you speak, it is what you stand for. You know, and now what do I tell about them?
What would you like to say a younger generation that's growing up? I mean,
Actually, to put it in a little more perspective, because you've had the first really public conversation with a man from the industry and fraternity, I think the biggest quandary for a few of us who've joined the WCC has been that when we go on a film set, there's a sense of discomfort if and when we get to a film set, get the opportunity to be in a film set. If and when we meet people from the fraternity in social spaces, and I'm sure that applies to every other woman and girl who has been part of the Me Too in one way or the other, either through the internet or otherwise. We obviously cannot ban and put everybody in jail. How do we as women, how would you like us to deal with this on a
One,
day-to-day
I will
basis?
salute you and thank you for standing up. And why a strong woman always disturbs a man. He has not been used to it. He is not comfortable about it. Now, a personal attacks on you or banning on you, history and future will remember you for standing up, and I think you have to go through it. You need to, that's how it happens. You need to inspire more and more women coming. The very fact that you people have started a discussion, they will victimize, but you have no time to play the victim card too. No, you're not playing what I'm saying. No, please, listen.
no.
Listen, what I'm saying is, this is like how if I stand for a truth, if I speak out, I am suffering, but I don't want to say it. Because you need to continue, you need to pursue, because you have started it, you have stood for them. It takes time for people to open up. It takes time. Like you have been successful in getting men like us come out and speak. You have been. I am ashamed because I wish I should have started this. But I say we need to be ashamed because you started it. But at least now I have come in. So it is opening up. It is, and the younger generation, I am very sure, are more liberated than these so-called already set guys. It's difficult for them to evolve or unlearn. But younger generation is not that. I see so much of camaraderie, so much of give and take. It is. They are seeing it. They are watching it. It just probably they have still not found the voice in unison to come out.
as a man in the industry and talking about so many socio-political issues, even gender issues, I'm just wondering, I know the kind of personal and professional pressure, social pressure that I go through just for speaking my mind. Do you go through the same as a man? Do your closest
Actually,
people come and tell you to, keep quiet?
They do, but for their bad luck, I am too rich to lose.
You do?
I am too rich to lose. I can afford to lose. My integrity is very strong, so they've picked on a wrong person. But definitely, but I could not be an example because I'm too strong within, and I don't get hurt, I don't get disturbed, I'm ready to fight back. But lot of people, I'm just here to be a catalyst to say keep fighting. You can withstand them. Because I believe your fear is their power. Otherwise, they're powerless. If they're assaulting to banning you, stopping you, trying to play the games, that means they're desperate. But me, yes, it could be raids on me. I never talk about the raids on me. IT raids for me. I said it is a routine thing. See it. Nor do I have other business interests where they can come and talk to me because I invest myself, my thought, and that's it. That's my business. I'm too rich. you know, and that's how my life has been. They have stopped some films, or it is not that they call and stop you from a film. That fraternity, that group will think that if Prakash comes in, he's a dangerous guy, we will be attacked.
Exactly.
So there is a very designed fear instilled. There is a group among our industry who are ready to be afraid, who are already afraid. You know?
Absolutely, absolutely.
See, that is how it is. And we are the ambassadors. We have started it. We have to see it. We have to suffer it. We have to go through it. And we have to stand stronger to give a hope for another person to raise.
I think we should open it up to the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sounding like Modi talking
Because
too much.
we're all like in the same plane. Can I also do some of that? I can't articulately put it, but. Should we open it up to the public? We'd like to hear from you. Beena Sajida, why don't you also join?
Hey guys, are we boring?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Okay, I thought, yeah. Okay. Thank God.
Am I audible?
You are. Name?
Vinay.
Okay, Vinay.
So you always mention that you like coming to Kerala, and because you can speak your mind. But post the Shabarimala fiasco that has happened, do you still feel the same, or do you still feel that Kerala talks morality or acts very all right at the surface, but issues are much more deeper?
I will come more to Kerala now because of what it is, because I love this place. And I wonder, a flood could unite Kerala. Why is a custom dividing it? Isn't it? We need to ponder, we need to think, we need to continue to see these forces which are trying to disturb our peace. I come here because I enjoy the liberty, enjoy the IQ of these people, enjoy these youngsters who come, and it is so beautiful here and so wonderful here to talk in Kerala. And if it is disturbed like this, I'll come again here and request, guys, there's somebody who's entering. They're entering into God's own country, and God is a problem in God's own country.
And I think it's great that God is a problem, and we recognize it, because honestly, if you did this in Delhi, you'd get arrested. If you were a DU kid or something, you'd be arrested, stopped from courses, you'll not be allowed to do your PhD, so you'll be happy that you're having a wall, and then there is a protest march at the same time. The fact that probably we're talking about and opening up about an issue, and that's a great start. So we should always look at dissent from any side. After all, their truth is as well their truth is their truth. It's up to us, and if we feel it's not equal and it is not as per our Indian constitution and for the freedom we fought, why do we think so? The onus is on us to. That's democracy, no? So that's the beauty of it. Yes.
First of all, I want to congratulate all three of you for speaking truth to power. And power, I mean Mohanlal and Modi, who are almost best friends now. My question is theoretical, it's purely theoretical. I'm a student of literature, and I want to ask you about intersectionality, which is addressing all the power structures that oppress women. It could be caste, religion, all of things. And as literature has found its own way of dealing with it, how do you think cinema can address intersectionality?
I must really say we're learning. Because right from the time we started WCC, we've been getting this, oh, you privileged women, you amma cheese, you're feminities, well, we've heard quite a lot of that now. So yes, it's been a very interesting journey, if you ask me personally. When we started WCC, we were just 17 of us, standing up to help our friend. But then when we started sitting together, talking with each other, we kind of addressed
Fighting with each other.
fighting, you have no clue. But then I guess that's how you find your space, right? You understand what are the class structures within cinema. We understand our privileges. I think it all starts from there. Understanding. I know I have a production house. I'm married to a smart-ass director. I know I have 10 years behind me. I've done my work. I have reached a platform. I have a voice. I know it. But then I think as WCC, when we all stand together, we say we have Rahana, a hairstylist, working with us, and until and unless we address her issues, unless and until she feels safe at her workplace, we haven't done anything as WCC. That is what we believe. It's not for us alone. There's a huge process that is happening right from education, because most of us don't even know our rights. We don't know our responsibilities. We don't know that we are such a huge industry and we can actually ask for certain things in here. We don't know. We've been going along with a flow, like even me. Just take me. I've been in the industry for 10 years. And it took such a big incident for me to stand up and speak. So I guess everybody's kind of finding their voice, finding the space. I think 2018 has been about finding our voice in particular. And understanding class, understanding, I was asked, when I was at the Vanita Madal, I was asked, I believe Kulastrigal are not coming. I'm like, dude, wait. Let's not further pit women against women, Kulastrigal and feminists against each other. No. I think we have to hold on to everybody, understand their problems, converse, debate, and move forward. There is no going back anymore.
So I think specifically a few more examples, like she talked about safety. It's interesting that through the idea of safety, there's a conversation. We have a litigation in the court. Not a litigation, it's a writ petition. And it's very interesting that most of our industry folks feel that the place is safe in their responses. And also feel like there is no issue at all.
The writ petition is for an internal complaint cell within our industry, in every single body, right from the Producers Association to AMMA to everywhere. We need an internal complaint cell as a preventive measure.
So it actually starts from there, where you raise a conversation about, first let's bring and identify safety and inclusion as an important idea, and then actually institutionalize it even if our current law is not capable of doing so. The second thing, or the second 2-3 things that we are working on, I can say, I cannot talk about all the industries, and Prakash, you can enlighten us about what's happening otherwise, is a very interesting project which Beena is leading, and it's talking about creating a gender manual on how do you, what do you mean by gender equality? What do you mean by sensitizing, and what is gender sensitivity about? What we're planning to bring out a glossary of terms, like you have cameraman. What is the alternate, glossary for people, so that film practitioners can use that as a guide to sensitize themselves. And when we say gender, the third thing is about film festivals, which we are having. We talked about intersectionality. I think some of the biggest strength which WCC has seen in the past is not just from women, but from the wider public here. And that wider public transcends caste and class and everything. And to us, that while we cannot focus on all issues at the same time as an organization, the process of conversation on inclusion will naturally include others as well. And I think that's a great step. And that will happen in terms of scripts, it would happen in terms of treatment, behavior, outlook, all of those insights, right? And am I missing out on something?
The trans woman.
Yeah, also in terms of trans, like for example, in our membership, we have included trans women. So, I mean, we have to get more and more sensitive and start talking, and of course, having conversations like this. I don't know, you want to talk about the process of creating the first IC in a first Malayalam film?
Yeah, so we're shooting for a film right here at...
and what that has meant in terms of,
No, so basically we have to define what sexual harassment is to the men and the women here, because most of them don't even know what sexual harassment amounts to. They don't know a lewd comment or even a look which makes you uncomfortable can amount to sexual harassment. So, you know, the education has to start from there. And I don't know, just ask the women here, you know, just to have an authority or a panel or a body where they can go and say, see, I have a problem. We didn't have that provision in the films world till today. And for the very first time, since this whole conversation has been happening and the whole industry has been saying that, you know, this is not needed here. And, you know, we had a certain actor who said that, you know, maybe, so we went ahead and said, you know, we are going to start, we are going to institute an ICC in our home production. We are shooting for a movie called Virus here. And we have an internal complaint cell for the very first time in the Malayalam film industry. And one actor had came about and said maybe women acting in our films feel unsafe, and that is why we're having an ICC in our film sets. That is the kind of attitude that we see here. But then I feel proud that, you know, we've given women a platform, we've given them a space where they can come and actually speak if they have a problem on their sets.
There's a lot of work which is happening in the Bombay film industry for sure. Prakash, you have any idea about any other industry which is doing anything interesting or unique, which is worth
I
noting?
think the Vishal was very, very forthcoming.
Yeah.
Okay. Or not
Yeah.
happening. Then
Not
that's
much
also
happening, yeah.
not much. Is that sad? Because I mean, we can't
Very
just
sad.
keep on naming people, right? That's not really a solution to moving ahead on gender sensitization.
And then going off the topic to the gentleman, I think the onus is on you too. That when we make heroes and gods of certain people, call their bluff. You call their bluff, and it is not just entertainment. You need to stand for something, otherwise we will stand for those who are fighting. Because that sort of an acceptance, that sort of a support from the society also helps them to be stronger.
And don't troll us.
Okay. Mr. Prakash Raj, I want to salute you as our future Minister of Stage in the HR department. As you are going to start a new career in the politics, what is your priorities in this modified India?
So you're already elected, dude. Like this is like that.
That's fine, I love it. See, in a constitution, there is no party. There is every individual who represents, and they come together to form a government. I think now it is time where citizens' voice should be heard in the parliament. This is a movement which is starting and it's garnering support. It is simple. What I want for the future is, because I'm going to talk about a lot on my manifestos and things like that. It is simple thing is, when a road is laid, we the citizens' attitude should be, it is my money, you deliver, I certify. That's democracy. That's where we should go. Simple. Standing there doesn't make you outstanding. Speaking makes you outstanding.
Hi.
Question.
So this is the problem. Till now, not a single woman spoke. So I thought, let me. So
Cheers! Yay!
So the
Why,
thing
why
is-
are you excluding us? Okay, we'll give it to you.
Okay, so as actors, the body becomes the greatest property, the greatest asset, and there is a beautiful there is a beautiful relationship between the actor's body, be it a man or a woman. There is a beautiful relationship between this body and the camera, and throughout your life, when you're in the limelight, you're always photographed, you're always tracked, you're always followed by the gaze of the camera, which is the male gaze. So, but there is a point where this gaze, this attention that the camera gives you becomes an intrusion into your personal life and privacy. So when you're stepping out, as Ma'am Padmapriya told us, when you're going out to buy a packet of milk also, you're always photographed. And there is an intrusion into your privacy, your body. Your body is, it's always viewed, or you're always followed. There is this gaze following you everywhere. So where is this boundary, where is this contour that the camera, the gaze of the camera should maintain when it comes to be a man or a woman's body, the right of a person's body is concerned? That's my question.
I think as women, we have always been. I mean, I really don't know. I didn't have to become like become a public personality for this question to come into my, frame of mind. I think I've always been, just like you say, any woman who would have stepped out at 4 a.m. would have been stared at equally, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4 a.m. your breasts are smothered. 4 p.m. you're stared at.
Camera is an extension of a human eye.
Right now, yes. With your
Isn't
mobile
it?
cameras, I think we just live with it now. I think we're so conditioned and we're so. It's just part of life now. I really haven't drawn a line. Have you? I really don't know.
I don't know. I really don't have an answer to your question. But to me, I mean, as an actor, technically in my head, when you say cut, I stop admiring all this beauty of the co-actor's body and all that, and I'd appreciate it if my co-actor approves of that as well. And so does it apply to the directors and the producers. I think the absence of that, the fact that it is such a beautiful art and craft between action and cut, and that sanctity has to be maintained, I don't think is very well understood by most people, and that's probably the only response I can give to you. And we all want to experience it. Like, I remember my first film with Prakash, and that was my first ever film. I was lying dead. It was the remake of Seenu Vasanthi Lakshmi. I was seeing this man, and I had not seen much of Southern Indian cinema, and he was just like, he was so towering as a personality. I didn't know him as a man or anything, but between action and cut, I used to keep winking through and seeing, and they would say, "You're a dead body, sleep, dead body." And I would say, I want to see experience. That's very beautiful. The minute we transgress that boundary, it just becomes very uncomfortable. And when I'm saying, so all of this has to be between action and cut, and there has to be that resonance of those characters between that action and cut. Just because you're doing a romantic song with me does not mean you can hold me at that place which is not suggested or required. And once you do that, you have crossed the boundary. You've crossed the boundary of the relationship of love those characters are supposed to portray in that film as well. That's how I see it. That's how I've always seen it, and I've always had trouble hence. When it's not happened that way. I don't know if we answered your question, but
I have a question which would have been asked in the next session. These guys know they get my one-liners here. What is your take on recent wave of political biopics, which are maybe bent for driving, influencing the mass mentality? If you're talking about the accidental prime minister, well, that was an accidental prime minister, and this prime minister is an accident.
how do you come up with it? How do you come up with this?
They give the script. Good question to have a lighter conversation, yeah.
Yes. A lot of serious.
So, I have a question.
Yes.
So we've seen the women in the industry come together, form a organization and stand up with each other. But what did the men in the industry do for it? I mean, what's stopping them from coming together and actually standing up? As you must be knowing your peers, what they're thinking. So why haven't they? What's stopping them?
Didn't we answer it? I don't know.
I mean, like a much clear answer. What's stopping them coming together?
They are men.
Is that the only reason?
That's it. They are insensitive. They don't know. They are not aware. A lot of reasons, simple reasons.
Excuse me.
No, I mean, so Beena was saying that the history of women's movement, I mean, the fact that feminism is alive after so many centuries, I started a long time back, is because enough men don't speak up. And why they don't speak up, you have to tell us about the male psychology. I'm not a man.
I explained you what men are, and you said, no,
Okay.
our men are very good. I said, no, generally, all men are not your men.
True.
And because they are men, we need to sensitize and we need to put pressure on
True.
them to say, call their bluff and say that, I mean, cinema heroes are not real life heroes, guys. Isn't it? And this is a whole lot of society, the whole lot of perception, the whole lot of pressure. Together we need to ask them to come. Because somebody has to be answerable, somebody has to be accountable, somebody has to be a person who can flow where the society need to flow, isn't it?
And I would really, request of you that, you should ask your female friends as well to slowly empower them to speak up. It's totally okay to speak up. Unless we have more noise and sound, it's not going to resonate. Like, honestly, right now, how many members do we have in WCC? Do you have a count? We just have 50 women, and there are lots more out there. So, I mean, it's even their silence that's not speaking up enough.
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am. I think there's been a transformation from the word feminist to femininity. So it's like, I still believe that majority people do not understand the real word and the concept of feminism. So I believe that people must either be categorized as normal or sexist. What do you think?
I would ask you, what do you think?
Yeah, obviously. Like, why do you think the term that feminism is being like misused today? Yeah.
What do you mean by misuse?
I mean, they have no real idea of what we're trying to convey, and still there are a majority of people who doesn't know what actually this feminism means. And is that the reason why they term from feminist to femininity?
What do you think feminism is? Let's yes. We have Mridula Gagya, please.
Hi, I'm Mridula.
I'm Mridula Garg. I'm a writer who writes in Hindi and sometimes in English. I'm supposed to be a feminist, and in fact, an iconic feminist writer. Nobody has turned feminism to femininity. They've only turned it to female. And that means that every woman has a right to decide what is feminism. Actually, that is what feminism did. It allowed women to be different. One woman can be different from the other. There is not one mold into which we all have to be fitted. So that is true feminism.
Thank you so much.
Excuse me? Here. So, like, my question is to you, my ma'am. Like, there is a strong hatred which comes to you, your husband, your friends, your colleagues, and to the people who supports you, including me. Only because the fact is that we support feminism, or like we go with women empowerment. Like, there's a strong hatred. It's not a simple thing, it's a strong hatred. Even I have faced that much of like cyber rapes with words in my Facebook. I know it's not simple, but how do you, from where does the energy come, like, to just don't mind these things and go forward with your goals?
I think that's why we are a collective. I mean, the fact is that I think somehow WCC stands much more stronger than even in the Bombay Film Festival, that just when few of us like come together, I think the power of a collective is something we really undervalue. And I think my energy, surely there are times when I've just felt, oh my God, And we do give that opportunity to each other to take rest and somebody else, take the mantle, work on. It's really the power of the collective. We really subsume when like Prakash was saying, it's on us, right, to sign a road, whether it's been constructed well or not. So it's only when we all come together and realize our rights and values and duties, then I think that's the power which keeps you going.
Yeah. I think it's a very creative process for me, this whole fight. No, I'm very serious. I think I'm creating a new space. I'm creating a new platform for discussions, for people to come out. Just like a Me Too movement or a Times of movement gave voices to so many people, I think we have been creating a space. It's a creative process. I want to look at it like that, and I want to sideline all the negativity and look at the positivity, look at this crowd here, and take in the vibe and move forward, because I am so very sure that this is going to do good for everybody, every single woman and man who's going to come into this industry. And with the power of cinema that we have here, I know we are talking to a larger society here. That is why WCC or this whole issue, this particular case, became such a huge talking point. It is the power of cinema. We understand that we have that behind us when we speak. We know we're not speaking just for the industry, we're speaking to every single woman out there. And I was just at the VIP lounge there when two volunteers, two young women, two girls came up to me and said, we kind of go out there. There is this culture of fear that, every single time you step out, you're going to be molested or abused or maybe even raped. But, now we kind of feel that the onus is not on us. We'd rather just go out, and every time you people speak about it, it helps us. I mean, like random women coming and girls coming and telling you this, I think it's huge. It's a huge energy for us. Yep.
Like recently you shared a particular thing which Mamta Mohandas said on FB, like there's some mistake of herself which made the other sex to get attracted. So like, could you just explain that a bit? What's your take on that?
No, see, Mamta is a dear friend, and what she said it was her fault that men had attacked her. I wanted to stand by her and tell her, and stand by every woman and girl out there and tell her, it is never your fault if you're attacked or abused or anything of that happens. It is not your fault. And when she says that, she's a very popular figure. She's a cancer fighter. She's inspired so many people. And maybe if at some level, if even she is conditioned to believe that she was the reason for someone else to attack her, I think as a woman who works in the same industry, who knows her, I think I have the responsibility to tell her that no, she's not at fault, and also to stop her from telling a lot of other women that they are at fault when they are attacked. I think I had to step in there. Usually I wouldn't have done it, but I thought I had to step in there.
Usually you would do it.
Yeah, I do.
Can three of you separately mention about a scene or an event in your professional life which should not have been happened to you, but still has got a very deep-rooted influence in your mind, and based on that thing accordingly, what is your advice to the aspirants or upcoming persons who are following your path in a profession? Sir? Separately, please, three of you answer individually.
Something that happened to me.
Nothing happened to me.
Privilege for you people.
What? I said nothing happened.
I think that's what happens at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I think. I'm unemployed. I'd like to change that, and I'd like that to be changed for other women and other men and other people who are unemployed, not because they're not capable of being employed, but because of their identities that they are born with, on which they have absolutely no control.
See, I think on many levels, I have experienced sexism in varying degrees. So, and I think even I was quite conditioned to it, and I think I kept quiet. If I have to say one thing to any woman out there, I think the time of silence is over. It is definitely over until and unless you stand up and you ask for what you deserve, your fair share, your fair cut, your fish fries and what not. You are not getting it, people. Nobody is handing it to you on a platter. You have to fucking stand up and ask. That I have understood in 10 years of my industry life.
I have a question about the trolls. So it's hard for me as a person not in the limelight as you guys are to deal with certain kinds of jokes. And I love dark humor, but there is a limit. Like, in fact, even yesterday, a very good friend of mine talking about a person who belongs to WCC who is acting in a movie, and another friend of his is acting in the same movie, who is a man. And so this guy tells the other guy, "Ada WCC aanu, oru maanyalam nadakkarudhu, nokkanam." So what he was saying is that, you know, it's time that you be aware that you're going to get into trouble. So that's what I see. But at the same time, I think the matter is so serious that it shouldn't be joked about. So what do you think? What do you feel when there are so many million people talking about, you know, at work, if we talk about something like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. So the other person says, yeah, me too. And it's like, #me too. You know, that's not funny to me. It's not funny at all. But what do you guys think?
I think they're starting somewhere. Yeah. Let them joke about it, whatever, but they're at least taking notice. At this point, that is where I stand. I totally don't agree to them joking about it, of course. But see, this whole trolling that happened after my TED talk, I think it would have gone unnoticed otherwise. Today, so many women are taking notice and talking about it. I think I'll just take it as free publicity and, you know, keep at it. I really don't care as long as they're taking notice. If they're scared and if not scared, they're aware, right? You know, they know that we'll talk now. It's not going to be like, you know, it's okay. You know, it's part of the job, this industry that you are in. No, it's not like that anymore. I'm just happy about this culture that we are bringing about like that.
Excuse me. Here.
I play cricket with them, with the trolls. It's like, you know, a fast bowler is bowling to you. So you don't have to hit him back. I guide them to six like this. I'm having fun.
Okay, thank you. And that's the end of the session. The time is limited.
There's one last question, it seems.
It's just an ambiguity that went into my mind when Prakash said that we should have taken up this issue. We should have taken up. So somewhere I feel that there is a kind of patronizing toward, you know, something that women should take up. Men have this tendency to patronize certain things. It's an ambiguity, so it's free. Like, if you want to respond to it.
There's a question and answer is in it only. I like it. Thank you. Thank you all. And can I request you all one thing? How many of you all follow me on Twitter?
Unfollow.
No, very few. Help me with my campaign wherever you are.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And